Hello, everyone, and welcome to our final day of National Apprenticeship Week. Hope everyone is having a good morning. I'm your host, Andy, once again from Career Map TV. It is my pleasure to introduce the Minerals Matter team, who'll be running through what opportunities they have to offer as an apprenticeship. From an early careers perspective, we'll hear about the apprenticeships they have on offer, the recruitment process, hints and tips, and we'll hear from the recruitments and the apprentices themselves. Remember, there'll be a Q&A at the end of the session, so just leave your questions in the chat and Q&A box, and we'll come back to them at the end. So without further ado, I'll pass on to the Minerals Matter team to commence with the rest of their session.
Morning, everyone. First up, we're going to be hearing from people today. So first off, you get from me at Hanson. We've also got Breeden, Ibstock and Cornish Lithium here speaking today. And I'm speaking up first. So I'm Ryan Murphy. I'm here to talk to you today about my career journey and why I think you should be looking to join the industry. So I could talk you through for ages a bit about my company, Hanson, that I work for, but actually I'm going to first play a little video for you that will make it a little bit easier. I hope that tells you just a little bit about Hanson. If we could bring back up the slides, that would be fantastic. Thank you. So that's just a touch about the company I work for, but we're not here today to hear about Hanson. We're here today to hear about our journeys. So where did I begin before I joined the industry? Well, like many of you, I would imagine, I left college and I wasn't quite sure what I wanted to do. Thought about going to university, but wasn't too sure. So I got a part-time job working in a library. Went through a series of other jobs, but I sort of came to the conclusion that I still wanted to continue with my education, but I didn't want to have to pay the fees for university and I still wanted to earn some money. So a higher apprenticeship seemed to tick the boxes there. Didn't know a lot about the industry, but I've been with Hanson for over 8.5 years. So clearly I love it. So where did I start on my journey? As I said, joined Hanson on our leadership education and development program back in 2014. And so that's otherwise known as a lead apprenticeship. Basically, the point of the apprenticeship was to look at all different areas of the business. So I was seconded to quarries, to wharfs, depots, cement plants, concrete plants, asphalt plants, all sorts, and learned the core skills that would be required to become a quarry manager in the industry. Also was working through a formalized education program. So I earned my foundation degree in mineral products technology and also got a QCF level 4 in health, safety and environmental management, which was all funded by the business. So that was fantastic. Got to work at some beautiful sites. As you can see on there, that's Pateley Bridge Quarry in the picture. So lovely place up in Yorkshire. So got through the apprenticeship. So that was the first big hurdle. Moved into my first official role, as it were, as assistant unit manager of a couple of quarries up at Shatbeck Quarry in the Lake District in Cumbria. Beautiful place again on the right there. Here was managing 2 quarries, my first direct reports with 18 employees, but as I'll keep on sort of saying throughout this, you never stop learning. I was learning about people management, about budget management, and I really loved this because I got to work outside a lot, got to work with a really great team, and it was my first real responsibility. Probably also helped that I got a company car for the first time. I also started on my company-funded BSc in Minerals Management, which I continued to do into my next role as well, and earned my BSc in 2020. So in 2018, I moved into another role as a district sales manager. This was where I was responsible for managing customer relationships, but continued learning again more of the core skills required around commercial and sales. But it gave me a really great insight into the importance of the materials of our industry. So I'll come on to that in a little bit about why the industry is so important. But from there, that commercial experience that I got enabled me to move into bid writing. So in 2020, I became a bid writer and was able to work on some massive projects. So things like Hinkley Point, Thames Tideway, that sort of thing. In essence, in that job, I had to write tenders to try and sell what we do as a business to try and win new work. And I got the opportunity to work with some of the largest clients in the UK. I also started learning about sort of newish topics to me at the time, which were social value and fairness, awareness, inclusion, respect. So I'll tell you a little bit more about that in a moment. So now, finally, come on to what I do now. So start of last year, 2022, I became one of the business development managers for Hanson UK. So I work nationally across all teams now, and I support and lead the implementation of our social value and fair strategy. So it's gone from a quick step from learning about it to supporting and leading. But in essence, that's about what do we do with communities and how do we give something back. I also support our marketing teams. I continue to work with major projects on tenders, and also things like working on third-party accreditations and all sorts of other stuff. But the reason I love my job now is, as I sort of said about the communities, I think we have a real impact on the communities we work, and it's quite exciting to work in an area that's a pioneering new emerging topic. And as far as education goes, never stop learning. I'm planning on starting a company-funded master's in the next couple of years too. So why do I think the industry is important? Well, in essence, it impacts everything in our lives, even though we don't necessarily realize it. Rare earth minerals go into your phones and electronics, obviously bricks and concrete for homes, agricultural limestone for cropland to help our crops grow, asphalt for roads, limestone powder for your toothpaste, and animal feed, and then things like burnt lime for steel production. But the list goes on and on and on. And basically, almost anything that we interact with in our day-to-day lives comes from our industry. And we have a significant impact on the world. Carbon is a real challenge, and it's our sort of duty to make sure that we care for the world and leave it a place that we can all live in 100 years. And I think there's a bit of a misconception about the industry that we just sort of destroy nature and that sort of thing, but actually that's not true at all. Just at Hanson, for instance, we've created 80 sites of special scientific interest at former or active Hanson sites. So actually we have a massive benefit to biodiversity. And so what do I love about it then? I've sort of gone through a quick touch on what I've done, but in essence, there's loads of opportunities to learn, loads of opportunities to grow yourself, both personally and professionally. The job perks are really good, pay, holiday, pension, car, but also the sort of policies that our sorts of companies run, which look at like people first. So things like advanced maternity and paternity policies, working flexibly. Hanson have just introduced a sabbatical policy even. So if you've been with us so long, you can go away for a year and come back. More importantly, though, I actually want to work for a company or an industry that I believe does things for the right reasons. And I truly believe that we do. We do a lot around charity, volunteering and community engagement, which perhaps people don't always know. There's plenty of career routes available. So I'll come on to that slightly in a minute. But the other thing is maybe people think of our industry as a little bit out of date, but actually we're cutting edge in a lot of ways. And at Hanson, our Ribblesdale cement plant, we ran a world's first hydrogen trial and made a zero carbon cement through production, which was an amazing project. And so that sort of thing is going to be more and more prevalent in the industry, and there's loads of opportunities to work on really exciting stuff. So I said a little bit about career routes, and we've sort of spoken through a couple that I've been down. So quarry manager, sales manager, technical manager, you might think, but actually there's loads more available than that. You could be a geologist, you could work in strategy, you could work as a solicitor, you could be an accounts manager, branding, marketing, logistics. It goes on and on and on, sustainability. So I think it's really important when you think of the industry that you don't just think, oh, I have to work in a quarry, that's the only option. There's loads and loads of different options available. So coming to the end for me, quick snap tour there, but a couple of key points of advice I would just give. Try not to worry too much about the different routes that you might want to go down. When you get into a role, try and just learn that the best you can and be the best you can at it, and then ultimately opportunities will come to you if you can prove that you're good at what you do. I won't go through everything you do, but I think one really important thing is don't be afraid to take some risks. Not everything works out, but I've applied for plenty of roles that I didn't get, and if I hadn't have done that, I wouldn't have ended up where I am. So I really think that's important. And finally, if you don't have any at the moment, ask for some work experience at any of the companies like any of ours, and it'll put you in a stronger position to apply it for later on. And just to close for me, finally, I think it's really important to say that it doesn't matter who you are or where you're from, that you're always welcome to the industry. And so I'll just play you a very quick video to close for me.
We help our customers to build things.
Big things.
Roads, bridges, homes and hospitals.
Small things too.
We produce the best materials.
Tailor-made for each project.
Which is how we build our own teams too.
We find the perfect people for every role, no matter who they are. For us, it's all about skills,
determination
and character.
We want a range of perspectives.
Different voices making big decisions.
You see, we employ everyone from quarry managers to drivers,
to geologists to analysts.
So brand managers, we could go on.
But whether you end up working on site,
in the office,
on the road,
or on the sea,
you're a part of our team.
Which means we'll welcome you and we'll support you.
we'll train you,
And most importantly, we'll let you be you.
Because the one thing we know about construction
is that it takes a lot of different materials to make it strong.
Be your best you at Hanson.
So that's it from me, and I'll hand over now to our other speakers. Thank you.
Morning everybody, I hope everyone's well. During this presentation I'm just going to talk a little bit about who I am, why I chose a degree apprenticeship, why I chose breeding and what my aspirations are for the future. This site you can see here, this is Dowlow Quarry, this is the site that I work at here in the Peak District, where we produce around 2.5 million tonnes of limestone every year for the UK market. As I said, I'm Rob. I've been with breeding now for around 18 months, having come straight from college, studying finance, business and law. I have keen sport interest in boxing and rugby, which I think has helped me massively for my leadership skills. And I'm also studying at Derby University currently towards my level 5 minerals products technician, and have the aspirations of going on to gain my minerals management degree in the future. A degree apprenticeship for me was something that I always wanted to do, having found out everything about it. I didn't want to sit in the classroom and carry on learning from a textbook. I thought I'd prefer to be out in the industry, gaining practical experience and knowledge, in which from being 18 months in, having been at uni, the knowledge and experience that I've gained from industry professionals has helped me significantly towards exams where I can answer questions based on the experiences I've gained, not from what I've learned from a textbook, which helps me massively. There is also the financial element of it. You're earning whilst you're learning. It's a major contributing factor for many people. For me, I wanted to earn from a young age. I thought, I don't want the fees from uni. I prefer a sponsor like breeding to sponsor me for my apprenticeship and the degree. And earning whilst I was working was what I wanted to do. Now, breeding, as a young company, breeding are innovating and expanding significantly, very quickly. My process into breeding, when I left college, I didn't really know what to do, didn't know what industry to go into. I had a rough idea of that I wanted to go into project management, mainly in the construction industry, as projects are something I always wanted to go into. They fascinated me, and I started sending my CV around, but wasn't having much progress in getting anywhere. And it wasn't until my mum suggested have a looked into breeding, and at the time, to be honest, I had no idea who breeding were, so I thought I'm best off researching who breeding were, what they're all about, and seeing if it's an opportunity that I could take. And having researched into breeding and finding out of the innovation, the expanding, the investment they were willing to put in, I thought this was an opportunity for me that I could really take hold of and strive in the industry. The opportunities that I've had to date with breeding are immense. The courses that they've put me on, the degrees that they're going to put me through, it's for me as a young person, it's a very good company. It's not just management courses that you have to do, because not everyone wants to be a manager. There are also mechanical and electrical apprentices. There's quantity surveying, there's accounting. You can go into the geology side of things. You can be a driver, and there's so much more. There's room for everybody, and it's such an exciting company with the investment they're willing to put in, especially at the site I'm working at. Over the next few years, there's going to be some big changes, and the projects that I'm going to be able to get involved in will be interesting. And I just really want to go into what is next for me. For me, I want to carry on with my degree at Derby University. I want to get my honours degree in minerals management, which I think will help me significantly. And I also want to start going towards the sustainability and energy route sat in the side of breeding. I think being involved in projects all across breeding on making sure we're sustainable and we're being efficient in how we operate is really important. I think innovating and contributing towards the mineral industry, which without us, we won't be able to construct the buildings we have in the UK. The number 2 liquid, most used liquid in the world is concrete, and without limestone, which is a major contributing factor, it wouldn't be there. So it's really important industry. And I want to say for future apprentices and graduates, it's an industry that we can change. There's demographic headwinds that future people like myself can counter on and get involved in. And it's really important that we notice that, and that younger people, if you haven't heard of breeding, that you have a look at the website and consider, is this an opportunity for me, like I did myself? And from being 18 months in now, it's a company that I can safely say that I'm thankful that I've joined, and that I'm really excited for the opportunities that I'm going to face. And I'd just like to say a big thank you to Minerals Matters and Breeding for having me on here today and giving me the opportunity to share my journey. I'm going to pass on to the next person, which is Toby and Phil. Thank you all for listening.
Just wait for Toby to turn his camera on. There we go. So I'll make a start. So I am Phil Atherton, and that is Toby Ashcroft. We work for Ibstock PLC. Ibstock is a construction products manufacturer, so we are the UK's #1 leading brick manufacturer, and we also make numerous concrete products, which goes into all different types of industries, similarly to how the guys have just suggested their work does also. So our presentation is on the opportunities available during and after an apprenticeship by Toby, who is a current Ibstock apprentice, and me, Phil Atherton, who has completed that same apprenticeship and now I'm a full-time employee within that business. So I'll hand you over to Toby.
Thanks, Phil. Right, so during my time at Ibstock, just a quick introduction, sorry. So my name's Toby Ashcroft. I'm currently a manufacturing management trainee. I'm 1 year into my apprenticeship. The apprenticeship runs for 4 years, so 3 of which are at Sheffield Hallam, studying a level 6 in materials technology, and then there's a top up of 1 year for Ibstock, and that's to develop my portfolio. So during my time at Ibstock, I've been put on to training, for example, iGas level 1 and 2. This is an industrial gas course that helped me understand the importance of the health and safety of gas, the regulations, the legislations, and how to work safely with it within the workplace. IOSH Managing Safety is another course I've been put onto. So this is a course that specialises in health and safety from a managerial point of view, which was a really important step for me, and I think it shows the importance of health and safety throughout the business and how to implement it efficiently. Practical and theoretical experience I've done throughout my time at Ibstock, so it's all about learning on the job, learning from senior members of the team, and then also reflecting on what I've done and how that happened. And so when I come across it again in the future, I know how to approach it, and it also helps me develop my skills and knowledge. So process improvement is a big factor of my role at the moment, and I'll touch on that a bit later. Traveling around the country, so I enjoy this part of my job. I've been lucky enough to go to Newcastle, Manchester, all of the Midlands, Bristol, Brighton, working with Ibstock, staying and working all over the country. And becoming part of a team is just as important, and becoming a valued member of the team is also great. And I'm very fortunate in Phil helping me be part of the team. So during my day-to-day, I look at kilns a lot. So this here is a SCADA screen, just a snapshot of the kiln, and this here will show you all the burn groups. So on this kiln, this factory was designed to double the output of the Leicester site for Ibstock. So that went up to 190 million bricks a year. The factory is roughly around the size of 6 football pitches, and this is one of the kilns that I've worked on. So as I said before, it will show you all the burner groups, and it also shows you the work output, the set point of the temperature, and also the actual temperature. So from the information displayed on the screen, you can have a pretty good understanding of what's going on with the burners, how they're reacting in this cycle, and then from that you can see if there's any issues and depict sort of what may be causing those issues. So for example, there's 2 pictures here. The one above is a burner that had a blocked air pipe. So I knew that this burner group was low on temperature from the SCADA system, and then I went to look at it. I noticed that the flame was quite yellow, which normally means that it's not very efficient burning, and that means that it can produce carbon monoxide. So it's quite important to discover these issues and work on them and maintain the burners. So the picture below is the burner that which is an afterwards, before and afterwards. So that's when I've maintained it, cleaned out the burner pipe and the air pipe, and then you can obviously see that the flames change colour. There's a lot more velocity in the flame, and it's a good length as well. So collecting and interpreting data. So this is also a key part of my role within Ibstock. This here is a mass balance this is also taken from the same kiln I was just on about. So here you collect all the data to see the air going in the kiln, air going out, the energy going in, the energy also coming out. So you can understand the therms per thousand, the simple efficiency of a kiln, and from that you can get this Sankey diagram. So this Sankey diagram just shows the where the energy is going. So you can see a lot of it is being recovered and recycled, but there are also some that is not. So from this picture here, you can work with that and move on to working into trying to improve efficiency with reducing gas, reducing carbon, and just trying to make the kiln overall more efficient. That's me done. So I'll pass back over to Phil.
Thanks for that, Toby. So now I'm going to go through some of the opportunities available once you have completed that apprenticeship. But just to start off with, I've got a small introduction on myself. So as I said, I'm Phil Atherton. My current job title is a ceramic team lead. So I've worked for Ibstock for 9 years now, which does not seem that long at all. I originally started as a technical apprentice, which is the exact same course as what Toby's doing now, but just under a different name. So Toby is currently doing the manufacturing management traineeship. And my career path since joining Ibstock has started obviously with a technical apprentice, which involved me traveling up and down the country, going to see new exciting projects which are happening within the group, as well as going to look at specific factory issues which need solving and a lot of process improvement. Then from that, I then moved into the technical manager's role at our Laybrook factory, which is in the southeast. And that role entails a lot of quality management, environmental management systems, as well as some asset management, looking after the kiln and dryer in the factory. This presents a lot of challenge, and also it was my first experience of man management, which is obviously a big learning process for anyone who's just come out of an apprenticeship. From that, I was also technical manager at our Leicester factory, moving into the ceramic engineering team, now to the ceramic team lead. And our team, which I'll go into what we do on the next slide. So within the roles and responsibilities of my role, I manage a team of 4, which covers the entire country. So I have a ceramic engineer in the south, one in the Midlands, and one in the north, who offer specialist technical support to Ibstock factories, as well as major Ibstock projects. And also within that team, we have our team apprentice, which is Toby, who spends a lot of time with all 4 of us, working on all different projects and at different sites, gaining as much experience as possible during his time to develop his skills and also relate them back to his university course. Something which is reasonably new to the job, due to the current global climate, is also finding new ways to reduce gas consumption and increase energy efficiencies, specifically looking at utilities. This is, of course, due to the nature of carbon and net zero. Ibstock has a target for, by 2030, reducing its overall carbon emissions by 40%. And if we move on to the next slide, which will show you a couple of the routes that we're looking to go down. One thing that we have learned, especially setting this hard target, is that we will never be able to achieve an overall 40% reduction in carbon emissions by doing the same things of what we've always done. So it's down to us to look at new technologies which are there available to either increase energy efficiencies or to decarbonize, which could be anything to do with fuel switching or re-engineering a process. So a lot of the pathways we go down is looking at to utilize recovered heat instead of wasting, which you could see on Toby's mass balance. There was a small section that was wasted. So it's how to grab hold of that, stop us emitting it, and then utilize that back into our process. And I believe that this now, as that we are at the beginning of the industry's transition to decarbonise, we, including me, myself, everyone else on this chat, and everyone of you at home, will be responsible for this. And it's our job to drive this new method of manufacturing, breaking old habits. And finally, becoming a mentor, which I've got to say is probably one of my favourite parts of the job. As you can see, there's myself, Toby, a couple of the other mentors at one of our quarries in Stoke-on-Trent. From my experience as an apprentice, I've tried to take all the good and bad that I've had or experienced during the time and try and bring out all the good to make sure that the experience that the apprentices currently have is as good as it possibly can be. A big strive on continuous improvement, and also what I've learned from good and bad mentors, how to be a good mentor, what not to do, and how to push and guide your apprentice to be the best they can be. And then finally is just a photo of a bit of training of Toby and Jamie, another one of our manufacturing management trainees, doing a mass balance, which is similar to the data collection slide, which Toby talked through previously. So that's it from us. Thank you very much. And I'll pass on to Lucy.
Thanks very much, guys, and brilliant talk so far. So I'm coming at things from a slightly different perspective. My name's Lucy Crane, and I work for a company called Cornish Lithium. So we're actually based down in the southwest of England, in Cornwall, and we're looking for lithium. So rather than industrial minerals mining, we're actually looking to restart metal mining here in the UK. So a slightly different angle. So I actually didn't do an apprenticeship. I was a bit of a science nerd at school and ended up going to university to do a degree in earth sciences. And then I did a master's in mining geology at the Camborne School of Mines. Now that's an interesting place, and I'll come back to it later. It's actually just over the road from me here in Penryn in Cornwall, and it's part of the University of Exeter. But interestingly, they're about to start a new degree apprenticeship course, which I think the first intake starts in this coming September, in mining engineering. And that's really the first time that a specific mining engineering degree apprenticeship has been done, I believe. So there are going to be some fantastic opportunities that open up through that. I ended up in the metal mining industry kind of by accident. I really enjoyed my degree, but rather than, my undergraduate was quite academic, but the parts of it that I really enjoyed were the hands-on practical things. And I did a internship one summer. I got some work experience with a big oil and gas company. And I spent my whole time sitting at a computer, clicking on seismic lines, because it was an oil and gas company. And I remember thinking, there's got to be something more interesting I can do with my life than this. And it turned out that the mining industry seems to be so much more varied. And so it led me to do my master's. And then I got a job working as an exploration geologist for a company that had projects in Ethiopia and Morocco. So I went and hiked around, fly camping, hiked around with my rock hammer, collecting rock samples for a few years and analysing them, working on exploration drill programs and things like that. And then I set up as an independent consultant for myself for a couple of years. And then I moved back down to Cornwall because I'd fallen in love with it whilst I was doing my master's, and joined a brand new startup called Cornish Lithium. So I initially joined as their exploration geologist back in 2017. And my role has evolved over time through being the geologist and actually exploring for the lithium. And I'm now the ESG and sustainability manager. So ESG is environment, social and governance. It's kind of the new buzzword for trying to do things properly. And we've now got over 70 people down here in Cornwall, and we're exploring for lithium in a couple of different settings. So I'll go through that in a moment. So a lot of people think of mining and it's not necessarily a career that they're interested in. We've done lots of public engagement, and you turn up with 2 blank sheets of paper and ask people to do word association. Like, what is the first thing that comes into your head when you think of mining? And quite often we'll get responses such as this: it's dangerous, it's wasteful. People think of fossil fuels, or they picture, miners covered in coal dust coming up from the pits, and everybody generally thinks it's bad for the environment. Whereas actually, when you then think about renewable energy, people all talk about solar panels and wind turbines, and I think most people recognise that switching to renewable energy rather than burning fossil fuels is what we need to do if we want to combat climate change. But the missing link in all of that is, what on earth do we build these wind turbines out of, these solar panels? It's all out of raw materials. So there's a phrase that everything we use is either being grown or mined. And, the previous presenters have got this message across as well. But geo-resources, whether that's things that we use for building the houses we live in or the roads that we drive on, or all of these technologies as well, all comes from the earth. And actually, it's quite often left out of this story about climate change and how we deal with it. So, for example, as we electrify things, we're going to require more and more raw materials to be extracted from the earth. And that's why I think it's a really exciting industry to be in if you're somebody who actually cares about the environment and wants to play a role in combating climate change. Mining, I think something like 10% of all the world's energy is spent on crushing rocks for the mining industry. So if we can do that more efficiently or power that with renewable energy, we can have a really big impact. This is a really interesting graph, I think. So it just shows that as technologies have kind of evolved over time, we're actually using more and more of the periodic table now than we used to. And that means that we can't simply rely on recycling everything that's currently in production if we want to be able to build all of these solar panels and electric cars and everything. We're going to have to keep mining raw materials for a long time yet, which means it's more important than ever to do it as responsibly as possible. So here in Cornwall, we are looking for lithium, and we're also looking for other battery metals as well. So in Cornwall, we've got thousands of years of evidence of people mining tin and copper, and we actually have really significant resources of lithium as well. So what is lithium? Well, it's the lightest metal in the periodic table, and it's found within minerals that are contained within rocks. So these are some pictures of the minerals that it was found within, and it was discovered by a Swedish man called Johan Alfredson in 1817. But there weren't really any uses for it around then. It was also one of the elements that was created in the Big Bang. But we use it a lot in our daily lives because of its use in batteries. So our mobile phones, our laptops, and actually electric cars now are all being powered by lithium-ion batteries. We've probably heard of them. It's also used sometimes as a treatment for depression, interestingly. So we have been extracting lithium for quite a long time, but because of this increase in demand we're seeing for electric cars, all of a sudden there's this real interest in finding new sources of lithium that we can extract in a responsible way. So in Cornwall, we've actually got some granite rocks that underlie the county, and these are relatively enriched in lithium. So we've got a real potential resource down here in Cornwall. And what we're looking to do at Cornish Lithium is take a lot of the historic information that was produced during the 1800s and 1900s when they were mining tin and copper on, very high commercial levels. In the 1880s, there's a square mile in the centre of Cornwall that was the richest square mile in the world, and that was because of the copper it was producing. So it wasn't a small mining industry in Cornwall previously, and mining didn't stop because it ran out of ore. It stopped because it became much cheaper to produce some of these materials elsewhere. So we've got a whole team of archivists, digital mapping specialists and data scientists who work on producing these basically subsurface models of the geology and the mineralization and the structures to allow us to find areas to go and drill and actually test for the lithium potential. We also use satellite data. We've done drone surveys and created 3D models of what some of these surface outcrops look like. And we're combining all of these different data sets along with kind of more traditional geological mapping and things to actually allow us to pinpoint areas where we think, okay, there's a good chance of us finding lithium there. So it's not just your classic geologist going out with a rock hammer. People with good IT skills and data analysis skills are going to become so important in the mining industry. So we're looking for lithium in two different settings. The first is within the granite rock itself. So there's actually an old China clay quarry. So a bit like the quarries you've seen in the photos from the previous speakers. There's one in the centre of Cornwall that's been producing kaolin or china clay for the last couple of 100 years. And we're looking to repurpose that and actually now quarry the granite rock again, but rather than producing kaolin or china clay as our main product, we actually want to produce the lithium-rich minerals instead. And then in parallel, there are deep groundwaters that circulate under Cornwall that are enriched in lithium. So we want to drill boreholes, pump those up to the surface and extract the lithium from them as well. These are called the geothermal ones. So just to sum up, we're really trying to use brand new technologies to allow us to explore for the lithium in much more efficient ways than it's been done historically, or it might be done in other parts of the world. And there's also huge advances that have been made in technology that are going to allow us to extract the lithium as well. And we've got members on our team who have done apprenticeships and learned on the job, who are our lab technicians and leading our geochemical team. We've also got people on the team who are process engineers. We've got people on the team who are, they're called metallurgists, but they're basically mineral processing engineers. And our team's growing, so we now have a quarry manager starting with us in the next few weeks. We've got site technicians. We haven't just got geologists and data scientists anymore. We've also got an HR manager. We've got a PR team. We've got a finance team. We've got archivists and digital archivists and people who are experts in GIS mapping. And as the company's expanding, there's going to be so many more opportunities to work within the metal industry. So places that places like Hanson sound like fantastic places to, start your careers, gain skills, perhaps take advantage of the amazing apprenticeship schemes they've got. But do remember, there are other options out there as well. You might actually, after you've got 10 years experience in one place, fancy a change and move into the new lithium industry. Or there are people looking to restart tin mines down here in Cornwall. There's a tungsten mine just over the Tamar River in Plymouth. And it's a really exciting time to be joining, whether it's the metals or industrial minerals part of the UK mining industry. And there are fantastic ways of doing that without having to do the traditional degree route. And I mentioned at the start, the Camborne School of Mines that are starting their degree apprenticeship in mining engineering in September this year, which I'd strongly recommend you finding out more about if you are interested. And yeah, to summarize, I think if you work in the metals or mining industry, we've got such an amazing opportunity to play a really significant role in this energy transition. We need people who care about the environment, who want to do things properly, bring about change and have a more diverse workforce to actually be coming into the industry. So please make the most of all these fantastic opportunities that are out there. Thank you.
Are we ready for the questions then? We've got quite a lot to get through. So we'll go quickly. So for your apprentices, Emily says, what was the highlight of your apprenticeship?
Let's get this down so you can hear me. Sorry. Yeah, to be honest, I'd say the highlight was a few things really. One, just being able to get over to all different areas of the business and all over the country, because with Hanson we're national, so got to go all over. Saw like cement work, got to go to like major project sites, got to like go out and meet customers, and I think it gave me such a broad insight into the different roles that are available in the industry. That was really exciting. But yeah, that's probably it really. Just being able to travel about lots.
Great. Well, is there anything from your apprenticeship that you've learned, like any values or skills that you've brought into your like day-to-day life? Obviously, like public speaking, like you're knowing, but anything else?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, these sorts of apprenticeships, and they're going to vary from company, but they teach you, the core sort of skills that you need to function in a professional career. Your organizational abilities, your sort of communication skills, how to engage with people at a professional level, working at sort of multifunctional at like, different levels of seniority. That it basically gives you loads of life skills, even things like budgeting, which help you, your day-to-day life. It talks about like people management, which gives you, particularly if you're dealing with, like a team of people, it helps you to be a little bit more empathetic about some of the issues that people have. So I actually think all round it just helps you grow to be a better person.
Great. Good stuff. I see that someone called Anthony has been answering my questions as other questions. So let's pretend he's not there and go with Joe. Hi. Hello, Joe. Is it true students don't pay to do a degree apprenticeship? True. I'd be really interested in this. If so, do you have a list of all the degree apprenticeships, degree types of apprenticeships available, please?
Yeah, I'll take this one. Yeah, it is true. When you're doing a degree apprenticeship, you don't pay for your degree or your qualifications. That's paid for by your employer. And also in tandem, you're also getting paid at the same time, which is probably the biggest benefit, which I'm sure everyone will agree. Get some money in your back pocket while you're learning. Yeah, I mean, and something that you would also get is once you're learning your degree and what you're learning in the course material, once you then come back to work, you can then put it into practice and develop your skills and really make sure that you know what you're learning about. So, yeah.
Great. Good answer. Good stuff. Question from Alfonso here. Hey, hello, Alfonso. Along with lithium, what other elements does the UK have which may be used in new future technologies?
I'll go for this one. Good question. So there's a lot of tin and copper still in Cornwall, and copper is used in electric wiring. And as we're looking to kind of electrify all of our energy systems, we actually need a lot of copper. There's something like 4 miles of copper wiring in an electric car now. And we've got copper resources potentially in Cornwall. Tin also. So probably, I don't know, a long time ago, people used to use lead as a solder, and that was banned because of the health implications of it. So tin has replaced that. And so tin is actually a really important part of this future technology landscape as well. So we've got tin, tungsten, which is at the tungsten, there's a mine called Tungsten West near Plymouth. Tungsten is used quite a lot to harden steel and make alloys. So actually that's really quite important as well. There are people looking for lithium, not just here in Cornwall, but also up in Scotland. There's people looking for copper and perhaps cobalt in Wales as well. So all of a sudden, there's a lot of exploration starting to happen for metals again in the UK. And the reason we haven't produced metals in the UK for 30 years or so isn't because we don't have resources of it, but rather it's been cheaper to do it elsewhere. And it's also, this kind of NIMBY attitude that we sometimes come across, this not in my backyard attitude. People have been much happier to kind of offshore the impacts of producing these things. But, as the rest of the speakers have said so well, we've got really high environmental standards in the UK now. We have to treat our workers fairly. And actually, there are huge steps that the industry is taking to be as environmentally responsible as possible. So I think there's a real argument for producing what we've got underneath our feet in the UK, here in the UK for UK industry.
Great answer. Thank you very much. Question from Jason now. What made you start working in the mining industry?
I can jump in and say, for me, and I imagine many people, I actually think it's a bit of an accident, to be honest. I think, I just was looking at the time for different options for places that would pay, a competitive salary and pay for my degree. It just so happened that I found Hanson, and it could have been that I found a marketing agency in London, but I didn't. So, by accident, but I'm really glad I did. And that's why I'm here today to say you don't have to be finding it by accident. You can find it through things like this.
Great, good answer. How about the rest of you guys?
Very similar. I think a lot of people do end up in this industry sort of not by accident, but because they're looking for somewhere who will develop people very well, which is what it does, and also offer a lot of career opportunities, especially for further development.
Great.
And I think there are so many transferable skills you get as well from working within this industry that, you know, if after a few years you decide it's not for you, then you can so easily transfer into construction or with the people management skills and things like that. From a project management perspective, there's so much you can do with the foundational skills that you actually get in the mining industry.
Great. Move on to the next one. Jason, again, sorry if we missed this, but how much can apprentices get paid in the mining industry? I'm going to say sorry, Jason.
So I think it really varies depending on the type of apprenticeship that you go into, because there is literally loads and loads of different options. So for instance, just at Hanson, we've got, you know, like craft apprenticeships, we've got, you know, management apprenticeships, we've got graduate programs, so it really sort of depends. The only thing I would say is, as an absolute minimum, we pay living wage at Hanson. I can't speak for all the other companies here, so that's, you know, the minimum you would expect. But you know, I can just say when you come out of those sorts of roles, you'd be looking at competitive salaries and opportunities to grow very quickly.
Good stuff. Here's an interesting question by Stella. What kinds of new/unknown jobs do you predict will be in place in 15 years? Would you like to answer that one?
I can give it a go.
Go for it.
It's a very good question. I think the data science perspective is going to be really important, whether that's, you know, the example of the kiln and all the data that the guys were getting out of that kiln. Are there ways that we can automate that? Can we use machine learning and artificial intelligence to, you know, do things in a smarter way? I think the environmental side of things is getting more and more important, rightfully so. And also looking at how, when these quarries and these mines come to the end of their life, how we can restore them, deliver biodiversity gain, which I know we had a great example of as well. But yeah, the environmental side of things, the data science side of things, yeah, they're the key ones, I reckon, but others might have some other ideas.
I'll just jump in slightly, yeah, and tagged onto that, the other thing I think is around sort of community outreach and engagement, which is like becoming more and more and more important for the industry for numerous reasons. But I think roles in sort of like social value management and sort of like project community management will become more prevalent in the industry, as well as tagged on to Lucy around sort of like carbon innovation and that kind of thing as well.
Mm-hmm. Great. Here's a question from Matt. What happens to mines and quarries once all the minerals have been extracted? Do the people get made redundant? I don't think they do, Matt. But I'll hand on to the professionals.
I can jump in here. I know, especially at quarries, before the quarries can extract, many quarries have to do a sustainability report where they create a restoration design for when the mineral's all gone, that they have to restore the land back to either how it was, or they have to expand on the site. I know down in Cornwall, the Eden project used to be a clay site, and it is now turned into this amazing site down south. And I know at the site that I'm at, we're currently in an extension project to where we're extracting around 6 million tonne, which will then, after the project, which is an 8-year time limit, we have to restore the land back to what it was. So it would be a green field for the farmer's use. So all land does get restored.
Amazing. That's good stuff.
And as far as everyone being made redundant, not quite. So people are always given opportunities to move into different sites. Yeah, you're not just told the quarry's ending, sorry, you haven't got a job anymore. Doesn't quite work that way, no. But yeah, absolutely right, what you said about restoration as well.
Good stuff. Here's a good one for everyone. How would you rate your career satisfaction out of 10?
I rate mine pretty highly, probably a 9, I would say. I mean, it's very, very interesting, especially with the sort of work that we're doing at the minute, being at the beginning of this net zero carbon journey and at the very start of a industry-wide transition to produce in a green and environmentally friendly manner. So a lot of this involves looking at existing processes and old manufacturing habits and how we can break those, or how we can turn them into a much more environmentally friendly or reducing waste. As I mentioned on my presentation, similar to Toby's mass balance, how I think there was about 30% of waste heat, which was just getting emitted to atmosphere. How do we actually grab hold of that, capture the carbon out of it, and then reuse that back into the process, which is all very different and very new, and it's very interesting to be involved with.
Very nice. Sounds very, very scientific. Here's a good one. We got a few questions talking about like what subjects should I be doing, like A levels, GCSEs. They're trying to see which one's helpful to suit your career. Would you say you have to do specific GCSEs or A levels to get into this type of career?
I don't think there's any really specific A levels or GCSEs you need. I think this industry is a very specific industry that you can, once you come into it, like myself, I had no idea anything about quarrying or cement or concrete. And from the 18 months I've been here, I've picked it up as I've gone along and learned a lot more about the industry. And I think really learning from industry professionals is the best way to learn on how to improve and progress in the company.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, if you were to want to go down like a very, very specific route in industry, there might be certain sort of ways you might want to go. For instance, if you wanted to work in geology specifically around like lands planning and management, then you might want to obviously look at going down a geological route and that kind of thing. But no, totally mirror. I did something like law, English and photography, which was nothing to do with what I do now, so I wouldn't have to worry too much.
Yeah, I think sometimes, maths and science can be very useful if you want to go into some of the more technical roles earlier on. But because there's such a wide variety of jobs, like the social science, environmental side of things, I think pretty much any background can get you in if you've got the right attitude.
Great. Good answer. Now, talking about going into the apprenticeship, you're saying obviously you went in, you didn't really know anything about quarrying, and now you've learned so much from being on the job and learning the things on site or on the job, so to speak. And is there any misconceptions that you had from your apprenticeship, like joining like in the first week, or you're like, oh, it's actually better than I thought, or there's this thing that I didn't consider, which is very nice?
I know when my mum first mentioned about breeding and I was researching about quarrying, to be honest, I thought quarrying, that sounds a bit boring. But after actually joining breeding and then learning everything that goes on from the environmental to the compliance, to the health and safety, to the projects, it's an industry that is massive. And without actually researching what we're all about and without these webinars, I don't think a lot of people really understand what we do. And I think it's really important for younger people like ourselves to push out the industry to younger generations to get us all involved.
Great.
And I think I'd second that as well. With my role, I thought it'd be quite simple to make a brick. But as you learn and you progress in your career, you realise that there's interest in everything and there's difficulties, and as you progress, you learn these things and you learn from mistakes. So yeah.
Great, thank you. I just saw Lucy there in the chat saying it's also great you don't want to spend your life stuck at a desk, so we will expand on that. What was it like for your apprentices balancing work and study and life?
For me, I had an apprenticeship beforehand that was based at a desk, and coming into this industry, I massively prefer it, having the opportunity to go around different sites, as well as having the chance to actually sit behind a desk and try and get as much university work or college work done as possible. So I've got a really good balance, and I suppose that's down to having a good manager like Phil.
Thanks.
Great.
I think it's fair that that's mirrored across the whole industry, by the way. Yeah, I think all companies would give you time to spend on your education. I would say as you move up into like higher education, it is a challenge, particularly as you get more sort of senior roles. Obviously, you've got to balance that. Your day job doesn't just stop, but obviously the payoff is the company's paying for it. And you get this like amazing opportunity, amazing qualification. So yeah, I mean, it's not just all easy sailing. You have got to put in the hard work at times, but it definitely is worth it.
Great. Well, hopefully that sways a lot of people's opinions in the chat and you get a lot more applications. But that is all we have time for today for this webinar. Thank you very much to the Minerals Matter team for taking us to their offerings, their apprenticeships, and getting some insight onto what an apprentice does day to day. Hope everyone found it very insightful and useful in the chat. Do you have any final words of advice for our listeners, guys?
Just one thing, are we able to share perhaps like links to all the different opportunities we've got with the groups?
Yeah, just if you've got the links, you can just pop them in the chat.
Yep.
See Emily post in there if anyone would like to find any more, visit mineralsmatter.co.uk.
I think the one thing I'd like to say is that if you haven't ever thought about joining the mineral industry, is to take your time and have a research around the different companies that have been on today and just having a look at what we do more in depth, as there are some amazing opportunities that everyone can get involved in with.
Great. Thank you very much, guys.